given him a copy out of the Roman Catholic's own magazine of the private chapel in the Vatican where all the popes pray to the black woman and child. That's all he needed. Because I don't care who becomes Pope of the Roman Catholic Church, they must pray to that black woman and child in the Vatican private chapel. Again, and Bert, I don't have to say this to you because I show this to you. Here is the first Pope of the Roman Catholic Church, St. Peter. And you know he's a brother. Yesterday when I hear black speak about the black popes within the Catholic Church, they always speak of the other three. Who are these three? Meltiades, Pope Victor, and Pope Galatius. But that's all they know. I don't even want those three. I just want St. Peter. Why I want St. Peter is because they said that he was Jesus' right-hand man. And all of the Christian ministers, black, white, pink, or blue, even the Muslims, everybody, they speak of St. Peter. So let's look at the man who is credited for being Jesus' right-hand man. Now that has nothing to do with Jesus, because if you want to go to the birth site of Jesus, there's a church built called the Church of the Nativity in Jerusalem. And there is a picture of a black woman and child. Even though the Pope went to that site that they said where Jesus was born, he would have to genuflect in front of black woman and child. What I'm saying is I'm sick and tired of these, I like to call them Pope Capticators, black ministers. Because to me, that's what most of them do. Now, they could be offended. I said they need to come and study. However, there are some ministers in Paterson, New Jersey, who just got together with me because they want to learn. And one of them lectures all over the country in religion. And he's now coming to study and taking notes. Because they realized that they were shortchanged somewhere. Now, I don't profess to know the Bible because I don't study the verses and chapters of the Bible because I know where they came from.
When you say you know where they came from, where? What do you mean?
Because when you look at the sayings or the Psalms of Solomon, and you can look at the writings of Amenio, Ippur, Neferuhu, Ptahhotep, these are names you never heard. These are our religious writers who wrote more than 1,000, 2,000 years before Solomon or his grandmother was born. So what I'm saying is, I'm not going to take something in the middle and have it as a beginning. I always believe in going from the very beginning and coming forward. What we have been taught as a people is to deal from the moment of the event. In other words, you see me, I strike you, the audience in the Apollo, they see me strike you and they say, well, Gary did Simmons nothing. So they'll tell the judge that he should lock me up and throw the keys away. But now here's somebody in my home in the Virgin Islands who have never been to the United States, but know that 15 years ago when you were in the Virgin Islands, right, that you had punched me, right, or that you had done something to me. Yeah. So when I look at history, I don't look at history and start it from the event and come to ours today. I go in the other direction. So I go to the very beginning. Now, if someone tells me what happened from the moment of that event to what happened today, it's clear to me because I could tell them I knew it had to happen because I have the background to understand.
We're going to break for a moment, but what we're going to do when we come back is we will put you in the talking drum so you can take us back to the beginning, and let's trace our way back from there. Professor George Simmons is joining us live at the world-famous Apollo Theater on 125th Street. And an associate of Professor Simmons, Dr. Ben, is continuing his 15-day El Cabo Land educational tour to Egypt, to Kemet, featuring Cairo, Aswan, Luxor, with 4 departures in 1990. I mean, they've had me saying 4. It looks like, okay, July 6th through the 20th is 1, July 22nd through August 5th is 2, August 5th through the 19th is 3, and August 19th to September 2nd is the 4th one as well. Now, for further information on the brochure, you can call Alkin Tours, Africa Division, at 718-856-9100. The number again is 718-856-9100. It's one thing to talk about home and to talk about the glories of our ancestry. It's another thing to experience them live, and certainly to experience them with Dr. Ben. Again, remember those 15-day Al Cable and educational tours to Egypt featuring Cairo, Aswan, Luxor with 4 departures scheduled July 6th through the 20th, July 22nd through August 5th, and August 5th through the 19th, and August 19th through September 2nd. Again, for further information, call 718-856-9100. That's 718-856-9100. News is next. At Talk Radio 1190 WIB will come back. Professor George Simmons and our talking drum as we salute the African religious experience. And pass the word, do not forget, Edwin Hawkins and the group Witness join us at 11:30 right after Lloyd Strayhorn as we salute the African religious experience in the new GBE, the Global Black Experience. That is Afrocentricity. We'll come back with more right after this live at the Apollo.
Minutes after 10 o'clock, we have 53 degrees. I'm Carl Ferguson, WIB News. Several
famous Apollo Theater with Imhotep Gary Bird and the new GBE, the Global Black Experience. Afrocentricity.
We are back live at the world famous Apollo Theater. Good morning, everybody. A pleasure to have you with us. And some new guests who are joining us too. At Talk Radio 1190 WLIB. I'm Imhotep Gary Bird. We're moving into the Talking Drum segment of our radio broadcast. As we mentioned to you, this is the month of April, and during this month, we are saluting the African religious experience. Our guest speaker this morning is Professor George Simmons, who's been dealing this morning with the subject, the concept of religion, its origin and purpose. We again welcome Professor Simmons to the Talking Drum in the world famous Apollo Theater.
Thank you very much for the word, and to the radio audience. Before I really get into serious business with you, I'd like to get some information out of the way. If you like what you have heard, I'm going to be writing for a paper in which my son is connected, and it's called The African Voice. And you can see me later, how you could get subscription to this paper, but I'll be writing for it. Now, Gary said that Dr. Ben is taking some people on a tour to Egypt, which he has been doing for many years. So while he's in Egypt, I'm taking some to Nigeria. Any of you care to go with me? Where am I going and to who am I going? I'm going to meet with a Yoruba king who is a member of my study group. And he's the #1 king in Nigeria. #1, that means under him there are other kings, then chiefs. He would like a branch of sons and daughters. I wore this uniform for you in the Apollo so that you could see what it looks like. And when I go to Nigeria, we're going to be leaving on the 30th of June, coming back on the 14th of July. And it's only $1,500. We'll be the guests of the king. We don't have anything, the travel agency doesn't have to make any arrangement. The king will treat us. For once, if you go with me, you will be treated like you have never been treated before. Good. Now, since he is the Yoruba king, I brought some books because I have to study the Yoruba culture. So here is Olodumare. This book deals with the God that they believe in. And I have another book here with me called The Moon and Two Mountains. Now, that's about the Yorubas in Brazil. Since you have heard so much of the Yorubas, I want for you to know, if you like to go, then get in touch with Brother Amin-Ra, an ISIS associate, right across the street. And where's across the street? Mart 125, across from the Apollo. They'll have tickets for our dance. We're having a dance, so we could get ready for the trip. And we want all of you to come and share it with us. We're going to be having this dance on the 4th of May. The 4th of May, right down on 125th Street. $15 is all we ask. It's a fundraiser, and it's going to be at the ballroom. Now, what I'm going to say is this. See me right after I leave here, and I'm going to give you all the information that you want. We also, sons and daughters, that is, want you to become a part of us so you can learn this history that I'm going to tell you in a minute. 1, we said God is the devil. Why? Because when you go home, check your book, Isaiah 45, verse 7, where God is supposed to say that he created darkness, he created light. Now, besides creating those things, he says, I created good and evil. Therefore, Satan didn't create evil. So when the lecture says, is God the devil or the devil, you have to understand it's based on the Bible. Now, in the creation of religion, in its origin, it came from us. We are the ones who went throughout the earth and taught man about religion, about something more superior than man. Yet still, we as a people continuously worship gods that do not look like us. The reason for that is this. If we were taught to worship gods that look like ourselves, then we will take pride in ourselves and in our parents. No one then could control us. If you speak of inclusion in the school system, where we want our history in the school system in the same books with the white folks, you're in trouble. Because they have a way of writing you out, watering our history down. Do you believe that they will put in the school book that Einstein split the atom, give the world the theory of relativity, and at the same time turn around and say the theory of the atom was given to the world by the Africans? No way. Because without the knowledge of the theory of the atom, there will have been no atom for Einstein to split. What we have again is this, is that we are looking at where, when the Africans became the astronomers, when we started to plan, when we came civilized in terms of where Europeans will say, well, here are people who settled, who have domesticated the animals, who have gotten to the point of giving the world philosophy, theosophy, and all the other things that man needs as a civilized people. They were still barbaric. But how do they say? They say, we were true, loving picture hunters. Look at how they dressed up being a bunch of barbarians. True, loving picture hunters. If that was us, and they were already creating calendars, naming the stars, the heavenly bodies, naming what it is in terms of, if you have astronomy, out of it you get astrology. We were the ones who created astrology, not white folks, not the Europeans. We were the ones who gave ships to the world. So besides religion, in which they make us believe that we need to go to their churches so that we have to study their religious books in order to be a civilized people, no. We had all of this in place long before the Europeans were even true loving picture hunters. Because the pictures that they're speaking about in the caves are in Spain at Altamira or over in La Crosse, France. And those were not done by Europeans, they were done by Africans. So what we have here is we are speaking about a period in time how we experience this black religion in America, or religion period. Religion was made to what? Control man. Remember that. I don't care what religion it is. It was always created for the purpose of the control of man, to put fear in man. Without religion, a guy 350 pounds will go around beating up everyone. So you must put something there in place that will cause him to act humane. Am I the first person who have said that? Oh no. Ancient writers, ancient historians said that the purpose for religion was, like I said, to control man, to put fear in man. Who are we as a people? We are the greatest people in the world. We are no friends, we are no brothers to no other people. We are their parents. Now, you'll call me, what, a racist? You'll call me a bigot? White folks say that, and many blacks, that I speak superiority. Yes, I do. because I refuse to accept the fact that religion came from us, philosophy came from us, mathematics came from us, you name it, they all came from us, and I will want to be equal to those who are less than us. What I'm saying here is this month, as I was told, that they're dealing with religion and how it affects black people. I am not going to praise it. I understand that the reason that ministers boast of the fact that they were the ones who led the way in terms of trying to speak of repatriation back to Mother Africa. Who else was better to do it? The white man, although he does not want the African man, the black man, to be a minister, he gives the minister much more leeway than he does any other. That's why the black minister was always in the forefront. But how many? The exception to the rule. The exception to the rule, because when they speak of Delaney and all these others who supposed to have made trips to Africa or speak about having a repatriation, where were the rest of the black ministers? In opposition with. In other words, they were behind. I am saying it is time that the black minister get in line and understand that he has to lead the way for us as a people to get back home and to do what has to be done. Yes, the black church furnished the base for black people in America where we could meet collectively, but they mislead us because as long as they project a white God to us, it means that our children, when they walk into that church and see that white Christ up there, immediately recognize that his father does not look like that, and therefore he loses respect for his dad. That child loses respect for their mother because the mother does not look like Mary. Yet still, the earliest Marys, virgin mothers throughout the world, even in Europe, were you, the black woman. And until the black minister start to deal with it from this point of view, I don't care how he preach about saving souls, he won't be saving mine because he would have destroyed it. The time is getting short, and we're going to be ready for you to ask me questions, and I hope that some of the pork chop chicken eaters do ask some questions. But I am one, and sons and daughters, the organization that I represent, we are not afraid to challenge anyone. Yes, I would like to respect the ministers, but the ministers have done us a disfavor because saving of souls is not sufficient. Saving of souls come after you're dead. I want to save my people while we're here. And until the deal with now, they can keep the after, because none of them know what happened after. Anything that they speak about that happened after is another man who said what will happen after. And no minister I know wants to die. They all buy Cadillacs and try to drive them. And you don't drive them in heaven, that's what they say. And I don't want no milk and honey, because milk and honey gives you diarrhea. What I am saying is this, is that we as a people must get together and let us go back to the beginning and origin of religion. And let us take on our own religion and give the white man back his. Thank you, brother.
Professor George Simmons is joining us live at the Apollo Theater with something in the African religious experience. A different perspective in this case on the concept of religion, its origin and purpose. Now we'll take your telephone calls at 692-9542 and 1-800-332-1023. Any questions as well in the audience, you can come to our stage left and stage right microphones for any points that you may agree or disagree with. And we'll give you the opportunity of talking and responding this morning inside of the GBE. I'm Imhotep Gary Bird. Again, telephone lines at 692-9542 and 1-800-332-1023. We have a couple of folks who've already come up, and we'll start with our live theater audience. We'll start with the sister actually first to my left. Go right ahead.
Oh, good morning. Hotep.
Hotep, sister.
The cross, I don't know.
The this is the half,
Right.
it's an
Explain that to me.
Okay.
What does that
This
mean?
particular ant that you and the Apollo is looking at was given to me by Brother Samaj. And the brother requested that I take it with me whenever I go any place of importance, and I consider the Gary Bird Show a place of importance. Now, the loop at the top represents the woman's vagina. The stem at the bottom represents the phallic, or the penis. The arm, the crossbar, represents the offspring of this union. And that's why it's called the symbol of life. In other words, the arm represents the child. Now, since there's a problem because women feel that we're chauvinistic, they will say, well, the right part represents the male and the left represents the female child, so that the woman gets a role in as being the child. But that is where the Christians or Christianity got its Trinity from. But only thing difference is that with the Trinity, there is no woman. Everybody else recognized there's always a role for a woman. So what did it do? In religion, they'll call this symbol, in terms of where you have a female and a male and a child, they'll call it a triad. And then where they have nothing but male, like in Christianity, God the Father, God the Son, and God the Spirit, the Holy Ghost, with leaving the woman out, they'll call it the Trinity. So they mislead you with the Trinity and have you turn against the triad. And the triad makes a lot more sense, because without it, I wouldn't be here. So I'm glad my mother and father.
Professor Simmons, a quick note. I'm not sure when I was listening to your lecture how much you tied back into the Book of the Dead as the founding source of information for much of what we've seen come later on in the Bible and other holy books as well.
All right. Now, with the Book of the Dead, or the coming forth by day and by night, the Egyptian book, is thousands of years older than the Christian Bible. And that is where, if you understand the Egyptian Book of the Dead, you can see much of your Bible in there. But what does the black minister tell you? He tells you that the Egyptian Book of the Dead happens to be a paganistic book. Leave it alone. Don't believe in what it says. Why not? It is our book. Egypt belonged to us. And if that book happens to be thousands of years older than the Christian Bible, why should we not go back to our ancestors in which everything sprung from?
What is the connection between the book of Coming Forth by Day and Night, or the Book of the Dead, and the Bible? What is this? What are the similarities, if any?
Well, the similarities is when we look at certain things and we see them, then we see in the rituals, if you understand the Christian rituals, you will see much of the similarities. Like, for instance, in the Roman Catholic Church, the priest walks up 3 flights. Now, if you look at my chest, I'm wearing what most people call a medallion or pendant. Well, this is an exact replica of an item found in King Tut's tomb. This came from Egypt. At the bottom of it are 3 red bars, each of them representing the stages of life. The first one represents the stage of mortality, of being just a plain mortal. The second is that you go and you gain knowledge, so you gain what we call intelligence. Now, the third bar represents what do you do with that knowledge once you have it. And that is, you go and be a creator. You create things, you make things happen. So our ancestors called a person who reached that stage a god. So in other words, the third stage is to be godlike. So being a god in ancient times was for anyone who had tremendous knowledge or who did great things. Even Alexander the Great in his conquest were considered and worshipped as a god. In other words, God in ancient times had a different connotation to God of today. Again, because the lack of our teachings, we don't get that much.
692-9542 and 1-800-332-1023. Again, stage left and stage right. Microphones open for those of you in the live audience. And we'll also move to the telephones and give you the chance to join us too. Let's move right now to the telephone line. You're joining us live at Talk Radio WLIB in the world famous Apollo Theater. Good morning. Go right ahead, please.
Yes, good morning. I'm very happy to know that the professor is going to Nigeria. I'm sure he's going to find out a lot of things and trace us back to Egypt. But when he gets there, he should try, after getting
Thank you very much for the call, brother. I'm not sure if you heard the full dimension of the call, Professor Simmons. He seemed to be indicating that what he observes in terms of Nigeria and in terms of religion is very similar practices that occur within the structure of, I would imagine, the Yoruba religion that seem to relate to the Kemetic religion, the Egyptian religion as well.
Because, Gary, if you remember when I was on your show last time, and a question came up in reference to Islam doing something great in Africa with the Songhai, Ghana, and Mali empires, right? And I asked the question, what great did it do? Because a lot of historians and even read books that speak about the great civilizations established by Islam. What they don't tell you is that when the Greeks came in, Alexander the Great and then especially the Romans later, that they killed out the Egyptians, priests, high priests, and they fled all the way across the Sahara and came down to what later became the Ghana Empire and the Mali Empire. So they brought a lot of the Egyptian knowledge down there. Because when the people in Arabia, who were nothing but nomads, took over, as they went and conquered other most farthest civilized people in themselves, or at least in terms of civilization, they will take credit and it will become an Islamic civilization. And so few black historians is aware that those blacks who speak of a black or Arabic or Muslim civilization already had much of the training from Egypt, and the Yorubas claim that they came from Egypt.
Now, how would you respond to those who might, for example, look at the Islamic conquest of Europe, which occurred and ultimately led to the creation of great universities and so forth, and who might question what the role of African people would be in that? How would you respond?
Okay, we speak of great civilization in terms of Muslim. It's like everything else. There are periods. If I come and I take away what you got, your libraries, and I translate those books into my language, like when the people of Arabia went into what is now Syria and so forth, they took those civilizations that were far advanced and they became Islamic, and then they went into Europe. They didn't just leave from Arabia. That's why your great schools were not in Arabia. Your great schools, Islamic schools, were outside, like in Egypt, in North Africa, in other places where people were farther advanced. As a matter of fact, I heard a young lady here the other day, and a lot of people wanted to buy her book immediately, and people have been flooding me that they want me to speak in it. So, before I forget, I'm going to speak in it on the 27th, and her book, on the 27th of this month, at Harriet Tubman. It's a Friday night from 7 to 10. $3, I think, is the cost of coming.
Let's take one telephone call, and I think we have at least time for one more person in the live audience before Dr. Gerald Dees. We'll try to phone call at least. Go right ahead, please. You're joining us live at Talk Radio WLIB. Good morning. Hello, good morning.
Oh, yes, Gary Bird?
You're in the air with Professor Simmons. Go right ahead.
Yes, good morning, Gary, and your honored guest speaker. My name is Shahid, and I belong to an underground movement called Crown and Creation. My question to Professor Simmons is, how do we initiate from the first revelation fight the enemy of light when they pay our own people who worship Sodom and Gomorrah to fight against them?
Okay, Professor Simmons?
I'm not sure I understood the question, but I'm going to attempt to answer what I believe I heard. So if I don't answer you correctly, please let me know. My understanding from the question is, are you saying then that black people were paid by whites to fight their own people?
I'm saying even in 1990, they have enough of our people on payroll who worship the mark of the beast to try to deliberately block us out.
Okay.
Well, look, we are not the only people who are fought on the side of our enemies or conquerors. When you have a black policeman, you have to understand that the role of black police, for instance, is duty to those in power, not to his own kind, not even to the white folks. His is to help to maintain the system. If the white communists take over America tomorrow, those same police, black or white, who will bust the white communist head today, will work for the same white communists tomorrow if they come to power. So people have a tendency for their own existence will take bribe, will kill, will fight on any side for different reasons. And we are no different to anyone else. Because we know so little of history and we understand so little of it, a lot of time we blame ourselves more than we need to.
Thank you very much. And to the caller, thank you. We are out of time. Dr. Gerald Dees is coming up. Let us thank Professor George Simmons for joining us in the Talking Drum this morning. Again, our series continues. Don't forget, still coming up this morning, we're very excited about the fact that we'll be joined by inspirational vocalist Edwin Hawkins of the famed Edwin Hawkins Singers, and the group Witness will join us right after Lloyd Strayhorn at 11:30 today in the GBE. We'll take a quick break and we'll come back with Dr. Gerald Dees making another radio house call live at the Apollo and Talk Radio 1190 WLIB. We'll come back right after these messages.
There's a new study out today. It says that the medical...
At the Apollo.
We are back live at the world famous Apollo Theater. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to have you with us live on 125th Street at the Talk Radio 1190 WLIB. Well, this morning we are proud as we are each and every week, and we say this with a great degree of pride. You know, there was a time years ago when doctors used to make house calls. I'm sure that some of you can remember that period. We are proud because the brother who is on stage about to host this particular segment still does that in his regular practice, but most of all, he makes a very important house call each and every week on the radio. Dr. Gerald Dees, the host of Radio House Calls. Let's welcome him to the Apollo and to WLIB.
Good morning, folks here at the Apollo Theater and on the radio audience. You know, it's good to be here this morning, but it's even more important that the guest I have here this morning. You know, when I was coming up in Brooklyn, I came up in Bed-Stuy and lived on Halsey Street, went to boys' high school. There was a whole lot of folks that made a difference in my life. They were called role models. I'm talking about from the deacon in the church right on through to the man that lived a couple of doors away and who used to take us in off the hot streets and give us some watermelon and during the summertime when we didn't expect a cold, cool dessert like that. But it was so important to have these men around, very heavy guys. They made a difference in my life and my generation, because when I look back on my generation, all the young men that came through Boys High with me, we came out of poverty, but our mothers did domestic work, fathers did all kinds of jobs and things like this, but we succeeded because we had a whole neighborhood as a family. Today, some of these same men are heads of the police departments here right in the city, and the fire departments high up in the commands and so forth. And these guys ran around on Reed Avenue and all the different Patchen Avenue, Hancock Street, and we had a good time at the same time, but we had these role models out there showing us the way. You know, you've heard this thing called say no to drugs. And that thing is so kind of, not silly term, but it's a kind of a term that really doesn't turn young people on. In fact, I would say you have to take that no and turn it around and say, let's say on to something else, on with soldiers to conquer something else. And so we have a group here this morning. I met Ted Gustis a long time ago. He's a tremendous coach at Nazareth High School. Won 2 city championships, 2 state basketball championships, and voted the basketball coach of the year of the Catholic schools here in the city. So I'd like to introduce you here this morning to Ted Gustis. Good morning, Ted.
Good morning. How you doing?
Yeah, and he did a fantastic program. Was in his mind one night while he was sleeping, it popped up in his mind after working with young people so long and seeing how successful they can be around successful adults like himself. He said, instead of saying no, let's say yes to success. Because that's more important when you put something as a model for young people to follow. Say yes to success. And Ted, tell us about your program.
Well, Dr. Dees, first I'm here to say that the future is not bleak and out of control for our young people. And one of the things that I found that with yes to success, the whole concept of saying no was a negative way of bringing something to our communities. So what I decided to do is, all the years that I've been involved with young people, I've been saying yes to success. And like anything else, this is America, so I decided to take that idea and market it. It's like you have a formula with any type of hair product or so forth, a sneaker idea or anything, and you take that idea and you put all these things together and then you begin to market it. The concept of marketing yes to success to young people as opposed to just saying no. As you know, saying no came from out of political Nancy Reagan and Reagan began to just say no to drugs. And it's a soft turn because many of the kids I would ask, what do you mean? What do you mean about just say no? What are we to say yes to? And the first thing to do is to say yes to success, to begin to build on the positive things that these young people have for us in the community. And there's a lot of positive things. Out of my school alone, I have a young man that just graduated, going on to Harvard. I have a young man that's at Morehouse, Winston-Salem, Howard University, Columbia University. And these are young people that are tired of hearing people talking about drugs, don't use drugs, and they're not even interested in using drugs, Dr. Lee.
Of course not, and I think that when you stay within that confines of always these negative things and nothing for young people to look forward to, it starts wearing and tearing on them. They have nowhere to go. I know that Mike Levine is a teacher here in the city, and not only is he a teacher in the city, he lives in the neighborhood where he teaches, and I met Mike, and what he does with these young kids is so important. And Mike, I'd like to invite and say hi to you this morning.
Hi, Doc. To follow along with the thought that Ted was talking about, we were thinking about what would best serve the children in filling up their time. And just saying no to drugs leaves the children with idle time, and idle time do the devil's work. And we're looking to use athletics to encourage character building and use athletics to participate and achieve the better goals in life. So by what Ted is saying, don't just say no to drugs, say yes to success. And we're using the language that we know best. We're using athletics, and we're forming a program, a comprehensive program that will give the children a continuum of athletic events. So when they wake up in the morning on this Easter vacation, they won't say, oh, what do I have to do? Nothing. They can call up our communication service, and they can get in touch with our coaches, and they can get involved with our programs that will provide them opportunities to participate actively at all times.
Surely, and you know, being a teacher is so important. I know a lot of folks kind of look down on teachers sometimes and say, what are you doing for my children and so forth, but you know, folks, it all starts at home too. It's a kind of input that you have to have out there. The mothers, you know, I know a lot of folks are saying, well, there's a lot of one-parent homes, but I only have to remind you that 50% of the black men who are successful came from one-parent homes, so we can't have this as an excuse. Man, I have Daphne Busby used to say, instead of calling it a fatherless home, let's call it a mother-more home, because there's a lot of mothers who have raised some great young people, you know, and so we just can't get even caught up in that negative aspect of saying there's no man around the house, because that's where we have to step in oftentimes. I do step in right for years in my church, or my Sunday school, certainly in my neighborhood where I live at the present time. I've been a father to many young people, and I've seen them get married and things like this, and I look back at them now, and their success is by saying, yes, you can be a doctor. I live right on that corner. There's a doctor right there on that corner. I can be that if I want to. In fact, a lot of people in my neighborhood, instead of even calling me doctor, they just call me Mr. They don't even have the concept that, well, that doctor is so important. That's Mr. D's. That's okay, as long as they know there's a positive role model. And Ted, I know that you have other things that you can bring out about these youngsters. Because I saw them yesterday again, and I have never seen such proud young men in all my life. It was so good. And I know they came out of Brownsville. I know they're in the street with everybody else. I know they're living in projects. I know they are exposed to drugs every day and so forth. They ain't saying yes to drugs.
That's right. And Dr. Deese, we have with us today, we have our camera crew, which are young people, through the Yes to Success Student Athlete Club of America. And the reason why we selected athletics, because it is the one area that young people can come together regardless of your race and so forth, and really interchange ideas and thoughts and sweat and so forth. And the discipline that is required in athletics are the same disciplines that are required in life. For instance, I often tell a young man, look, if you shoot a free throw from the foul line, that free throw can represent things that you do in life. You miss that free throw, you don't put your head down and just bow out. You make an adjustment. If you miss to the right, you move the shot to the left. If you miss to the left, you move to the right. Well, the same thing is in life. if you make an error in life, you make an adjustment and you move on.
That's
and
right.
you take on gold. And one of the other things is that
That's a beautiful thought. Let me stop you, because I think I'd like the audience to digest that. If you miss that shot, don't bow your head and get off the court. Just keep moving on.
Just keep moving on, yes, and make the adjustments.
Yeah.
And you know, one of the things that I indicate to all the young men, and I had the opportunity, Rolando Blackman of the Dallas Mavericks played ball for me when he was a kid. John Sally of the Detroit Pistons. I'm 36 years old and been coaching for 17 years. That means that I had to start this here at the age of 17 or 18. The young people must learn today that if you have convictions about things, the way you feel about things, that no matter what your age is, you can lead. You can lead at the age of 17. You don't have to wait until you get 30 years old and say, oh, well, I want to lead. At that particular time, at the age of 17, I knew at that point that I wanted to lead. I wanted to be leader of the community, give kids some positive directions, because it was tough on me. I came from out of the Bedford-Stuyvesant and Brownsville community also.
Sure.
But one of the things, Dr. Deese, that it really bothers me is that the negativeness. You know, we can't even get any monies into our community unless it's anti-drugs, anti-alcohol, and you know, we have the legislation out there pushing for what about pro-lawyer, pro-doctor,
That's
pro,
right, sure.
you know,
Sure. The millions of dollars that come into our things talking about we're going to give more beds and more jails and all this kind of thing. Where is the money of that prevention? I agree with you.
You see, and the kids are dying from thirst. I speak all over the country doing motivation seminars and so forth. Kids are just tired of hearing that type of big. We blame the victims. The victims are the children.
Sure.
We as adults have to be responsible. We allow them to watch television where they have drugs and killing and prostitution and so forth. We are the one that are responsible for that. We have to be more conscious. If they say that 1 out of every 4, here's a new statistic now that they threw at us, 1 out of every 4 black males are in prison. Well, I look at it like, well, 3 out of 4 are not in prison.
That's right.
3 out of 4 are striving and looking to do better things. You know, and when I talk to kids on a daily basis, you know, why you keep throwing these negative statistics into young people?
In fact, you know, like right now, you talk about the movies and things like this. I understand this new thing about the turtles. It's the most violent thing that's out there. And our young people just lining up there to see this. And our parents really not paying much attention. They just think it must be a little cute little show about turtles. Go and see it, parents, and make your thing. And when you start talking about our legislators, this morning we have Jose Cavan here. He's executive director of the Black and Puerto Rican Legislative Caucus. This is the man that we're going to have to get back up there in Albany and say, give us some of these programs rather than some of these other programs, these negative things. So I'd like to Cavan to say something smart.
Okay, I'd like to, thank you very much. I'd like to applaud Ted Gustus and his efforts. I've followed Ted for quite a long time, and he's a very positive and dynamic young brother. But a lot of things he's saying is absolutely true. I think we're going to have to reverse our negative attitude to a more positive and progressive attitude. Stop focusing on what we don't have, instead look at what we do have. I think when we take a look at the successes of a David Dinkins, of a Doug Wilder, we don't have to always look at the things politicians aren't doing, but let's look at some of the things that politicians are doing, the kind of things we could possibly do through the political process. I think it's a very progressive thing at this time. We're going through a very dynamic time through the political system. And although we are embarking on some very difficult times, I think we have to focus on the positive things and develop more of a positive attitude within our community, something that just does not exist to the degree it should in order for us to overcome our difficulties.
You know, and speaking on even that, teaching school and so forth, you know, even Mike here, Levine, he has a new way that he teaches in school and has the kids really seen him tear up and down aisles and up halls and things like this to catch up with them and keep things in order. He teaches in roller skates. Mike, tell us something about you teaching in roller skates.
Well, Doctor, I use roller skates as a vehicle to accomplish more. First of all, it allows me to get around my classroom. It allows me to be rhythmatical when I'm teaching, And it also it forms a relationship with my students. You know, something is something about roller skating as well as athletics.
Right.
Whenever somebody sees you on roller skates, they smile.
Yes.
It doesn't matter whether they know you, they don't know you, and I get up and down my neighborhood,
Yeah.
and it's just a smile. So I'm just going around all day smiling, saying